Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Geekorama, the podcast by geeks for geeks. We are sponsored by superherofiction.com, the one-stop shop for all your superhero novel needs, and now the largest website dedicated to superhero fiction. And I just have to throw this in, the place to go for the Convention of Heroes, which will be happening June 21st to the 25th. We are your hosts.
I'm Jeremy Flagg, author of the Children of Nostradamus universe.
And I am T.L. Heinrich, author of the Vigilantes superhero universe. What are we talking about today, Remy?
So it is no surprise that Marvel's been hitting it out of the park, and we've decided, just like we did for WandaVision, we need to talk about Captain America and Winter Soldier. I mean, the Falcon and Winter Soldier, or Captain America and Bucky, or the Black Falcon and not.
Well, at the end, it's Captain America and the Winter Soldier.
But he's not the Winter Soldier. There was a little bit of confusion here. But we were talking about the Falcon and Winter Soldier. So there are plenty of iconic moments that comic book fans are going to love. So we're going to deep dive into that.
And spoilers. It should go without saying, really. Spoilers.
There's going to be a lot of spoiling. My gripes are all in the spoils. Which my gripes are quite a few. So
yeah, but we have the pull list at first. So Jeremy, why don't you start us off? What is on your pull list for today?
Okay, I'm going old school in I believe 1980 something. I can't remember off the top of my head. In the mid 80s. I just want to go back to something that I loved for the complexity of the storyline, and that is Watchmen. There is a lot of beef around this graphic novel, and some people love it and some people hate it. And the fact that it is 50-50 down the middle, I think is a reason to suffer through it if you don't like it, and to enjoy every page if you do.
Agreed.
The loose premise, because I cannot get into the complexity of it. The loose premise is, once upon a time, there was a superhero team, and since then they have disbanded. And what we have left over are the second era of heroes. And there's a murder. And now what's happening in this murder? Why is this happening? And we see this massive plot unfold that transcends generations. There are like 6 or 7 different story arcs that are happening, and I should say it's a beefy book. It's not you're gonna finish it in a weekend reading. It took me almost a month to get through it because it's heavy dialogue. There's a lot of it's basically a novel with pictures.
Gorgeous artwork, if I remember correctly.
Yes. So what I really like about The Watchmen is when it was coming out, Alan Moore and Dave Gibbons are the masterminds behind it. Alan Moore hates superheroes, just hands down. DC rubbed him wrong, and he wanted vengeance. And he wanted to do a comic book with this set of heroes, and they said no. And they were like, Go do your own thing with these heroes and knock yourself out. And so he did. And so you actually see the tagline, "Who watches the Watchmen?" And this is such a amazing concept. And you see Justice League later on steals it. The entire the Batman versus Superman, Batman's entire story arc in that is who watches the Watchmen, because you have these superheroes that are out fighting crime and trying to do the right thing, but who's keeping an eye on them? And when they go bad, what happens? And the beauty of Watchmen is it's the dawning of superheroes. There's only one person in the entire plot that has powers. Everyone else is a human. And you get to see, as Dr. Manhattan explores his amazing powers, you start to get an idea of what would mankind really be like with this limitless power. And he goes in one direction, and as you are reading it, you're thinking, I wouldn't do that. I'd go this other, oh man, Alan Moore actually is calling me out here. And you quickly realize you might not be the great hero you thought you would be. And Moore does a great job at this. So if you're a comic book fan and you haven't read it, you got to. You just, whether you love DC, hate DC, whether you love Moore, hate Moore, whether you like the movie or not, hated the movie, it's essential reading. If you liked the movie, I think you will like the graphic novel equally. If you hated the movie, you'll like the graphic novel more. But I think I can comfortably give it, even with there's some cringeworthy moments in it that I think I would still give it a 5 out of 5. I have not seen so many twists and turns that I couldn't predict and walked away feeling gross from a piece of reading like I did that. So yeah, I think I'm going to give it 5 out of 5.
Well, and it really changed the way people looked at and wrote superheroes, really. I mean, I think it's closer to the end of the 80s and therefore the beginning of the grimdark of the 90s, I think. I've heard my husband talk about how Watchmen really kind of opened the door for the grimdark stuff. And I read it a while ago. And you're right. The complexity is something that you just don't see in a superhero narrative.
1986. But you'll also see, like in Marvel's Civil War, heroes are going unchecked. Someone wants to check them. And then there's, like, we rooted for Captain America because he didn't want to get checked. Well, that's because Captain America is perfect in every way, shape, and form. But Alan Moore was like, that's not how this would really work.
Yeah.
So it is a realistic look. And there's some great romance arcs. There's some horrible romance arcs.
Yeah.
There is a really deep discussion about mental health in there. There is, it's a little all over the place. There is something for everyone. So 5 out of 5, read it.
Yeah. I do need to, I just realized we do need to put out a trigger warning for sexual assault. If that is something that you just can't handle, you might want to be aware that it's in this book.
And I will say that it is written well in the fact that it is not haphazardly thrown in there. But triggering because Alan Moore does not hold back at all.
Nope. He does not.
It is the brutal reality. And I felt uncomfortable reading it. So it definitely, if it's not your cup of tea, steer clear. Read the wiki. Easier. Probably shorter too.
Probably.
Okay, so what's on your full list this week?
So I'm going way out of genre. There is nothing sci-fi, fantasy, or superhero about this. I am going to talk about Forever Never by Lucy Score. And I am pivoting away from the urban fantasy superhero genre quite a bit and going to start writing more romance. With shades of superhero, not quite as heavy as my urban fantasy stuff. So in preparation for that, really trying to teach myself more about the genre, I've been reading a lot of romance. And I picked up, this was last year, I picked up a book by Lucy Score because everybody talked about how she's one of the best romance writers out there. And I got hooked on this author. And she's a contemporary romance author, but I have to say, I learned how to write romance by reading her books. She is probably one of, like, just in general, she's one of the best romance authors out there today. And she doesn't write in a series, which is really interesting. She writes these huge standalones. And I mean, like, they're door stoppers for contemporary romance, but they're paced so quickly that you don't feel like you're reading a big book. They are very, very steamy, very steamy. In fact, I have dog-eared in my Kindle so many of her sex scenes and deconstructed them so that I could learn how to write better sex scenes, because they're titillating and they're also emotional. And she just has this great balance of, yeah, wow, that's kind of hot, and throwing in the emotion and the language and just amping it all up. So Forever Never is her latest book. And this is the first book that she has ventured a little bit. She's dipping her toe into some BDSM themes, and doing it very, very well. So the couple have, in this book, they kind of grew up together as teenagers. And they've been in love with each other since they were teens. He's older than her. And so he never pursued a relationship with her before graduation. And when she graduated, she was like, okay, I'm legal now. This is going to happen. You're going to be mine. And he freaked out and he left town without telling her. And they go on with their lives. He actually ends up marrying her best friend, and they get divorced. Yeah. And now she's back in this really small town that's basically a tourist trap in the summer, and in the winter it shuts down. So she goes back home in the winter when the town is quiet. This guy is now like second in command to the town sheriff. So he's like a deputy, and he runs the local bar. So she comes home under very mysterious circumstances. She's got a broken arm. She won't talk about what happened when she was in Chicago. And it's kind of a big mystery, which is also kind of something different for Lucy Score. She doesn't usually write anything really suspenseful, but this has some real suspense elements in it. And so you find out throughout the course of the book that she befriended this socialite whose husband is very powerful and abusive and has threatened the female main character's life. And so she's hiding out. She's trying to figure out what to do next with her life and all of that. And in the course of that, her and this guy, everything sparks between them. And he keeps like pushing her away while at the same time kind of wanting to be around her. And they have this explosive fight about it. And that's when everything just kind of bursts right open. And it's the first sex scene of any romance novel is kind of a big deal. It's the emotional breaking point, right? Mm. And this one was so good. And part of it was because both of them have realized that there is a part of them that like he likes to inflict a little bit of pain with sex, and she likes to receive a little bit of pain during sex. But they've never been bold enough to explore that with other people. And they trust each other enough to admit that they want these things. And it makes him feel like he's damaged in some way. And she has to help him see, no, you're not. And you're not going to break me. I want this from you. And so it's this exploration of consent and, finding out, like being okay with your kinks, embracing your kinks and not having shame around them. That's a really big theme, I feel like, in this book, along with, like him getting over the fact that he doesn't feel good enough for her, and her getting over the fact that, I made all these mistakes and now my life is in danger, and it just is a great book.
We have a book where it's going to have to be like a satire of romance, because I want them to get together and be like, I really like inflicting pain. And the other one goes, shit, me too. Yeah.
They're both doms.
Yeah. And they're like, and you can even work in a little sex scene right there where they try it out and they're like, yeah, this is not working. The end. And they go about their lives very happily elsewhere. The end.
That's it. No more.
Because that would be my life right there.
Yeah. She handles, as somebody, and she had interviews after this came out, and she's like, I've never written anything like that before. And she's like, I didn't want to write it in the wrong way. which I very much am glad that she recognized that there is a right way to write that and a very wrong way to write that.
We call that 50 Shades. Yeah, I said it. I'm calling it. No shame.
And so, nope. But it's a really good book. It's a great romance book. It's got, like I said, elements of suspense, very hot sex scenes. And so if you're looking for something that, and summertime is coming up. So if you're looking for a really good romantic beach read, I could very much recommend this book. Forever Never by Lucy Score. Basically anything she's ever written, I have loved. So
now every time I go to the beach and I see someone reading a book, I'm going to be like, smut. Like all of you people not in the water, smut.
I give it 5 out of 5 capes.
Okay. I'm going to go right into the Geek Out because I found this one kind of interesting. So, which is weird because you're doing superheroes. I'm not this time. What do you know? So yesterday I watched Shadow in the Cloud, starring Chloe Grace Moretz, who we know from as oh God, what was her name in Kick-Ass?
I don't remember. Something girl.
Yeah, something kill everybody girl. She was the
killer girl.
Yeah, she was the only female role in Kick-Ass. And so the premise for it is a little bit weird. Like it's a lot of weird. I'm actually not sure I can recommend it. And because I'm not sure I can recommend it, it makes it a little more interesting in my head. So no spoilers because this one, you need to experience that on your own. So in World War II, we're greeted by a video about gremlins destroying planes. And it's kind of like a poking fun at like, when planes go down in World War II, like who do you blame? Well, we're going to blame the gremlins that do it. Put a pin in that because it's not even foreshadowing. It's basically telling you what's about to happen. And so Moretz gets on the plane and everyone is like, girl, get off this plane. And she's like, I have standing orders to be here. And they're like, girl, get off this plane. And they need to take off. And they're super annoyed with her. And, what's a dame doing on this plane? So they shove her into the gun turret underneath the plane because there's no other place for her to strap in. They're like, sit here until we take off, and then we'll get you out of there. And she has a package. We don't know what it is, but it's of the utmost concern that it get delivered to somebody. I don't know. So at this point, she met all the crew. Like in passing, it was her and one other person on the screen at every point. The majority of the film is only her plus one actor. So the very large majority of this movie, she is in the gun turret underneath the airplane. And it is a play on the 20,000 feet over in horror, there's a 20,000 feet concept where you're up in the air for 20,000 feet. And, that's its own type of terror. And so it plays on this because she's looking through glass. Like she literally can see everything.
Oh my God.
But the majority of the movie is her on the comms. And so at the beginning, because of course you don't remember what any of them look like, as she is listening to them talk trash about her because they don't know she's on the comms and all the delightful things they want to do to her. When she hears a different voice, it flashes in like this cool way who the speaker is. So it's training you to identify the voices, which one you like, which one we don't like, which one's the good guy, the bad guy. And it was just kind of a really nifty delivery. Well, there's some World War II fight-ness stuff that happens, and then there is the gremlin eventually does show up, and it's a real legit thing. And so it's World War II. It has a little bit of a alt history urban fantasy vibe to it.
Uh-huh.
And with all of that, at this point, I'm really into the movie. Now, the weird shit she does when she climbs out of the undercarriage of the plane and basically monkey bars her way across the wing of the plane. Girl, you got some core strength that no human has. Like, and to even rectify that, the camera goes upside down. So she's kneeling and walking as she needs to, like handholds and everything.
Oh my God.
But they found a way to like alter your disbelief.
Yeah.
And the filming of it was super nifty. Like, I think if you are a person who likes cinema photography, this was bizarrely interesting. If you're a person who, when characters do stupid things and you think, what the fuck, this movie might not be for you. It sticks really true to the time period. There is great suspense throughout the whole thing. I don't know what's going to happen. There's a little bit of action. It turns a little predictable and you're kind of okay with it because now you're invested in it. And then the ending was, I felt, very satisfying. But the way it's also filmed, because she's in isolation and most of the thing is only her, it felt like the person I was watching with, I kept asking, I was like, do you think this was filmed during COVID? Because she's only ever with one person. And when there's a third person, it's green screened in. So it felt like it was a very socially distanced movie.
Yeah.
But I did find out it was filmed the summer before COVID took effect. So it just very timely. But minimal set, minimal, like majority of it is in this one very contained space. The whole thing takes place in a World War II plane. So there's only one space. So that part of it I think was really good. So if you're okay with some dumb action, you'll get by this, but the rest of it was really worth checking out. And I think she just does a really good job. I think she's a very talented actress, and I think she's very underserved because of her role in Kick-Ass, which she was phenomenal.
She was.
The only reason to watch it, to be quite honest. The main character, I want him dead. So that is going to be my Geek Out. It is Shadow in the Cloud. It's currently only available on like iTunes Movies. It hasn't gone to any streaming services yet. But as of right now, I think it's only 99 cents. And for 99 cents, it was a good movie. $2.99, maybe not.
Maybe not.
Okay, what do you got for Geeking Out this week?
So I'm going old school a little bit. The 6th season of DC's Legends of Tomorrow premiered last week. And no spoilers for that, I promise. All I'm going to say about the new season is they are leaning into kitschy, cheesy, almost B-movie alien invasion so hard this season, and I am here for it all the way. You should check out the trailer on YouTube. Best moment of the trailer is Katie Lott saying, "I've seen some weird things, but that is weird." And then they don't show you what she's seeing, and I just want to know. I want to know, because after Bebo, I feel like the gloves just came off.
What can one up Bebo?
I know. So I started rewatching the show from the start, like the pilot. And when I told my husband last night that I was doing that, he was like, "Oh, why?" And I was like, I just was curious. And I'm a huge Arthur Darvill fan. So for me, like, I defended Rip to the end because I'm in love with Arthur Darvill after Doctor Who. But I mean, even I had to admit, they didn't know what to do with that character. That wasn't his fault, but they literally had no arc and no idea what to do with that character.
And they had a really good arc that was never like, it was completely underserved. It almost turned into the B plot. Yeah,
well, and they didn't take it to its logical conclusion, and I cannot for the life of me figure out why. But Dan's suggestion, he's like, "So are you really committed to watching like all of the first season?" And I was like, "Nah, not really. I mean, I watched the first two, like the two-parter pilot. He's like, "So why don't we skip to the last episode?" He's like, "Because that's when it was a really good episode." I'm like, "Okay." So we skipped to the last episode of season 1, and it was like, I was like, yeah, this is amazing. And we just let Netflix play it, and I had a lot of wine last night. And so we watched season 2. We watched like the first 2 or 3 episodes of season 2. And that's when I realized, I was like, oh, this is when they start to get a little weird. And not a lot. Like they're starting to throw in some odd elements. And that is when this group of weird ass characters really shine, is the weird stuff. The stuff that you're like, that's a little off. And they just take it. Then they run with it.
When they became the least weird thing about the show, suddenly, like, I was so much more invested in them.
Yeah. And the thing I'm loving is to see Sarah's character, Mick's character, Ray's character in particular at the beginning of the show, knowing where they're going to go, knowing where those character arcs are going to be taken. And I have to tell you, Mick and Sarah in particular have 2 of the best arcs I've ever seen in any show. Because Sarah is withdrawn and a little unsure, and she's dealing with all this crap from the Lazarus pit at the beginning of the show. And now in season 6, she has been the glue that has held that team together. She is their leader and their captain. And Mick goes from this just angry, wants to burn the world down kind of guy to he's got a daughter and he wrote romance novels and he's ride or die for that team and his captain. And it is 2 of my just all-time favorite arcs. And so it's interesting now going back and seeing where they started, because you can see threads of what's going to happen in there. And it's just, I love it.
Did you see the announcement of who is leaving the show?
I think this is Mick's last season, if I remember.
Yeah. It's not a happy ending. Like, the actor is furious about how things were handled on the contract side.
Oh no, really?
Yeah, there was not enough details, but it literally said that this was not a happy parting.
That makes me so sad, because everybody else that left the show, it was their choice. It was, this is okay. Like Brendan Routh, he left and he's like, it's time for me. But he was like, I cried my entire last week because he said, I've never been a part of anything where I felt like I was working with family. So that makes me so sad that he's leaving under a cloud.
And of any of them to leave under a cloud, he makes me the angriest, because he took a crap role and turned it in. Like, he's my favorite, hands down, because he is, you want to hug him and you're pretty convinced you're going to walk away with like beer and pizza on you.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly it. I love him. I love his character so much. And there was one thing I wanted to bring up. I forget what it was, but in season 2, I totally forgot about this, but in season 2, Rip is pretty much not even in the show.
No.
And he's in the beginning and then he comes back at the end. And then season 3, he's kind of he bops in and out of stuff. But season 3 is where shit really got weird, because they basically broke time. And I love it because they lean all the way into that, like all the way into that.
Well, originally when it was first filmed, it was only meant to be a 1-season, one and done filler for the time slot. And then by mid-season, you could tell like it had its own following like right away. Mm-hmm. And by season 2, I think the fans turned into crazy fans. So
it's always been a bubble show, but the fans have always been so committed and rabid about it. And just one more really quick thing, like one of my all-time favorite stories about the show in general is when the cast read the script about Bebo. And every single one of them they were like, well, this is it. My career's over. I don't even know where I'm going to go. They're going to cancel the show. We're going to be laughed out of the lot. Like, my career is over. I turn into a big, fluffy version of what's basically Elmo. And it was, the producer said, yeah, we didn't know how this was going to go over at all. And it ends up being hands down one of the most rewatched episodes of the whole show, and one of the biggest fan touchstones. To this day, if you look at any marketing materials, over half of them will have Bebo in there somewhere, because it is a seminal moment for the show.
I just love when they go chasing the unicorn and Sarah sees the unicorn and goes, oh, it's not Bebo.
It's not the weirdest thing I've ever seen.
You're like, a unicorn stabbing people is not even on your radar for weird. God love this show.
Actually, that moment, my favorite was Nate and Ray's reaction, because they're like, oh, Rainbow Sparkle. I mean, they're bronies. Like, they totally full-on own and reveal that they are bronies. They're so excited. And then it turns into a homicidal unicorn, and they are crushed. They're like, they are just, yeah, so much of the show to love. And like I said, you can see threads of it at the beginning. And now I really want to see the second season, because I feel like this is when they start to kind of go a little bit weird and realize that this is what they need to do. So anyway, that's my geek out. It's like rewatching Legends of Tomorrow, because I love the show. I'm ride or die for the show all the way.
All right, we're going to go to a commercial break, and when we get back, we're going to deep dive into Cap and Soldier, or Falcon, Bucky, something. Yeah, we'll get there.
Behind every great superhero story is a sleep-deprived author. Join Franklin Kendrick every Friday as he takes you behind the mask and asks today's hottest superhero authors the burning question we all want to know. Do they always write in spandex, or is that just a weekend thing?
All right, we're back, and we're going to be talking about Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
Yes.
No, I can't even remember what it's actually called.
It is. It's called Falcon and Winter Soldier.
So this is the follow-up of the trio of Disney Plus series that was created. This is the follow-up to WandaVision and the precursor to Loki standalone. And so each of these have been given kind of a very specific flavor. WandaVision's was meant to be a very dark, fantastical. This was meant to be action meets buddy cop adventure. And Loki is meant to be, well, kind of batshit crazy. So we'll
surrealist magic.
Yeah,
Loki,
like
basically
just Tom Hiddleston, I think, being Tom Hiddleston. So the plot for this picks up after Avengers Endgame, and it actually fills in a lot of plot points between Infinity Gauntlet and Endgame. So there's a 5-year period where half of everything in the world has vanished. And what happens is, with a snap of a finger, they all come back. And how is that going to, like, if half the population vanished, just think of the logistics behind that. And Falcon and Winter Soldier takes a very practical approach in dealing with so many things that happen with this.
So many questions that I feel like the MCU really didn't consider that this show took on and explored, honestly.
And the primary issue that they're going to deal with is very much mirroring immigration. Not specifically U.S. immigration, just immigration as a whole, which weirdly, coming on the tails of Brexit, kind of speaks to UK on this one. So
yeah.
The idea is half the world just blinked back into existence, but in the meantime, all of these people that were living in rural areas couldn't survive because half their population vanished. So they got moved, and basically we kind of became Star Trek for a little while. Like, we were one people.
Yeah, the implication is that a lot of border disputes went away. A lot of governments actually kind of came together, either in smaller governments melded into like a cohesive unit, or peace was brokered really quickly because these areas, you know, they had to survive. So they had to pool resources. And then the implication, I mean, well, it's outright stated that when people came back, all of a sudden you have these disputes going on again because there's not room now for people. Like there was room for people to live and thrive in some of these communities. And now all of a sudden people are back and where do they go? Where do they belong?
And essentially what we want to do is, now that everyone's back, despite the fact that for 5 years you've lived in New York City and that is what you now know is home, and you might have been young when you went there and now you're a teenager, screw it. You came from this particular place and we're going to forcibly remove you and send you back to where you came from.
Yeah.
And the argument in it is that that's not our home anymore. Like, we've made a life for us here. And what I didn't appreciate about Falcon and Winter Soldier is the main character is part of, or the main villain, whose name is going to completely elude me right now.
I don't remember either. Annie? It's not Annie, is it? I'll look it up. Keep talking.
Okay. So the main villain, she is part of a small growing grassroots organization that is attempting to push back and say, no, we are one people. The problem is they are, for all intents and purposes, referred to as terrorists. And we don't get to see the other side of that argument in any way, shape, or form. So it kind of relies on some of these feel moments to carry the logistics. And that was one of my beefs with Falcon and Winter Soldier, is that the logistics are never explained. So we're just going to pick people up and recreate countries. Well, that's not ever said. We're going to pick them up and just toss them back, but we're still going to support them. Well, that's not said. It's just forcible removal. And
so real quick, interesting. You Google villain for Falcon and Winter Soldier, and you get several choices.
Oh.
Baron Zemo, U.S. Agent, which I hated that fucking guy. And
favorite character in all of the MCU.
Oh, he just made me want to just kick things. And they don't give her name.
Carly.
All they do is they say that she's called Flag Smasher, which apparently in the comics was Carl Morgenthau. And
yeah, her father.
Yeah, so they changed it in this one.
And here's some of the beef moments that come up from this. So Carly is the name of the primary villain, but they, and take this with a grain of salt, they gender swapped her for sympathy. They aged her down for sympathy. Like, they casted her to create an emotional connection that is never, ever explored. And for all intents and purposes, she could be replaced by any actor or actress, and it doesn't make any difference whatsoever, except that her appearance is carrying her story arc, which is lazy writing as far as I'm concerned.
It makes her sympathetic.
Yeah. But if she was a 40-year-old man doing this, we would just been like, you're a terrorist. Same exact plot. Nothing changed.
Yeah. But I would argue that okay, a couple things. One, they kind of ham-fistedly acknowledge that this is a complex problem. It's not a black and white in terms of like all good, all bad issues. It's a very gray kind of problem with a lot of murkiness involved in what is the solution here. They throw that in at the end when Sam takes the senator to task, which I was like, okay, this is like shoehorned in. You could have done this differently.
So shoehorned.
But they wanted sympathy for these people. They wanted to frame them sympathetically. And she's not the only, like, the entire inner circle is young. They're coded as under 30, even though we have no idea what the actors' actual ages are. But from a viewer perspective, I felt like I was looking at 20-somethings and in some cases teenagers doing this, which automatically, like on a subconscious level, makes you sympathetic to them. On the one hand, I agree that it's lazy writing. On the other hand, I kind of do like the optics on that, because I like that they're basically saying you can paint them as terrorists, but there's more to it here, and we want you to be sympathetic so that you're thinking about that fact.
But
that's
the
how I
problem
took
for
it.
me was how many episodes was this? It was only 7?
7 or 8, yeah.
I don't even think it hit 8 like WandaVision. I think it was shorter.
They were hour long though, so it was like they crammed a lot in.
My problem was they never show her as the sympathetic character. They never they never explore her reasoning. There's just she must repeat the mission statement like 800,000 times. Like that summarizes everything. And it was, I mean, let's be honest, the only reason that this show even existed was to get Sam in the Captain America suit. Hands down. The rest of the plot doesn't matter.
I don't mind that, I'll be honest.
And if you wanted that, you could have literally had a super boring but super emotional 3-episode arc between him and Isaiah, the first Black Captain America, and Bucky, and it would have been tears all over the place. But you're throwing in a political agenda and you're using buzzwords to summarize. Like,
I did see a criticism, or Dan, my husband, saw a criticism about the way race was being handled. And this was a criticism from people of color who were writing articles about the show. Basically, so the moment they go visit Isaiah, Bucky and Sam are having an argument in the streets, and all of a sudden cops pull up. And it's a situation, they see a black man and a white man fighting, and they pull guns on the black man. And even though he's like, I'm not doing anything, I'm just standing in the street having a conversation. So it's this until Bucky steps in and says, do you know who this is? And something like, oh, I'm really sorry. And as a white viewer, I was like, oh, wow, that's actually, I feel like that's very powerful. But then there were Black authors that came out and was like, that's reality. That's like a Tuesday for a Black man in America. He's like, you're not writing that for Black people. You're writing that for white people. Mm-hmm. And they were challenging the writers to do better, to go deeper into the experience of people of color in this country. And it made me stop and think. And I was like, oh yeah, you are kind of sticking with like this surface level thing that we as white people can now recognize. And it was a missed opportunity, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
The opportunity that they did hit that I did like was when Sam and his sister are co-owners of a boat that belonged to their parents. And there's an argument of, do we fix it? Do we sell it? Mm-hmm. And they go to a bank, and the blatant dismissal of the white man that is offering them, or they're trying to get a loan from, and how he doesn't even see it as a problem. Like he just brushes it over. That I really liked, because that was so dismissive in a harsh kind of way that there was no empathy on that one. It was just, this is what it is.
Yeah.
The other one that this made me mad, I mean, hands down, like I nearly shut the TV off and fuck you, Marvel, was there is a moment where Sam is being escorted to some random stranger's house, and Bucky's like, I got some info for you and you're not going to like it. And Sam discovers, because Sam is having difficulty understanding what being Captain America would be like, what would he be shouldering? And it only gets realized, like, you know, in 2 spots in the whole show, because the writers didn't have a goddamn clue what they were trying to do emotionally. They meet Isaiah, who is the first Black Captain America. And
that is canon, and he's in the comics.
And he has been completely removed from history. And so Isaiah,
and not just removed, he was imprisoned and
Oh, yeah.
experimented on, and his entire life was stolen from him, which is actually historical fact. Black soldiers in World War II were experimented on. That is an historical fact that is not ever talked about and should be talked about.
And the man playing Isaiah, who
he voices Martian Manhunter in all of the Justice League cartoons, and he played Martian Manhunter's father on Supergirl.
That is right, Carl Lumbly.
Yep. And he was in Alias. He was really good in Alias too.
He has this powerful, angry, and the best part was none of it was directed at Bucky. Bucky has acknowledged him in the past. We don't know how or why, but somehow in their past they've crossed. But he tears Sam down for everything that the Captain America stands for and how it stands for some citizens. And it is a put your ass in its place monologue. And it was amazingly delivered. I really, really liked that moment. So that happens and you're thinking like, well, I feel very uncomfortable. Well, later on, when all is said and done, Sam goes to try and give him the shield to pay reparations. And Isaiah just looks at him and goes, get the fucking thing out of here. Like, you trying to honor me as Captain America, like, I don't care what you think. Like, you are not the majority. Like, it is 100% an angry fuck you speech. That was a great follow-up. Now, here's where my problem comes in. Third time we see Isaiah, Sam's like, yo, I'm the Black Cap now. And he's like, I know, boy, you're doing your job. And he's like, let's go to the museum where you're going to get honored. And he's like, finally, everyone loves me. You just destroyed the best part of that show. Isaiah's character is so adamant. I can see it being like a really lukewarm, like, okay, maybe things are going to change. But they put it so far into the I accept everything. Dude, you just minimized his entire dialogue about how the U.S. government tortured him because another black man acknowledged him. And that I thought was so incredibly dismissive. That last episode, I was furious. Like it ruined the show for me.
That's interesting because I didn't see that moment in the same light. I saw it as, because so much of the history of people of color fighting wars and what they went through that was different, such as the experiment on the Tuskegee Airmen in particular. So much of a black man's experience fighting for a country that despises him is never talked about, that I kind of felt like this is the beginning of an acknowledgement of, you played this incredibly significant part and you deserve acknowledgement. You deserve to have your story told. And
that the exact word there is the beginning. They rushed it to the final, which was acceptance.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
That was my beef. If in 2 years we see another cameo of Isaiah Bradley in the museum, finally seeing his face after all this time and willing to digest it and see that the world is trying to do better, I would have been there for that. But and my whole beef with almost the whole series, that last episode was trash across the board. You made me so mad at your lazy story writing that you did not think to pace this out correctly.
The pacing was really wonky. I will give you that. For 7 episodes, that needed to be tight and sharp. WandaVision's pacing was incredible. There was nothing. It was nothing wasted. This show, every episode was an hour, so you doubled the episode runtime of WandaVision, and you had like 1 or 2 fewer episodes. But you couldn't. So you essentially did have more time, or perhaps close to parity. But the pacing was so off. And can we talk briefly about the shit show that is Sharon Carter? Because I can't stand what they did to that character.
So that's the other issue with Sharon Carter. Okay, so we know right from the first episode, we hear the word power broker. And if you're a fan of the Avengers, you've heard this name before, not a big deal. And because it's obviously wrapped up in a Marvel mystery, you're like, oh, they're going to play this out somehow. So we're only introduced to 2 other characters of worth noting. Baron Zemo, who can't be the power broker because he's Baron Zemo. He's already established.
The actor chews the scenery beautifully, I might add.
Oh my God. If you could quite literally just go watch Baron Zemo dancing for an hour, and there's hundreds of videos of it. So
yeah, he could have twirled his mustache and cackled, and I would have been here for it. Like, honestly, yeah. I loved it.
And so the only other person is Sharon Carter. Well, I wonder who it's gonna be.
I know.
And you're trying to make it out like this is some sort of devious, like, you do realize in a show with 4 characters, you can't make Black Falcon, Captain America, power broker, like, not an option. Bucky suddenly becomes the power broker. Okay, that would have been a better twist. But the only other character, well, I guess we have to use her.
Well, and might I add that with the exception of Sam's sister, the 2 women that we meet, which Julia Louis-Dreyfus as the Countess, mwah, chef kiss perfection. That was like, I loved it. I was here for it. But she and Sharon are 2 of the really only main character women besides Sam's sister, and they're villains.
And Sam's sister, I felt, was fully realized.
I loved that character.
She might as well have been named White Actress number 1.
Okay, so I've had this problem with Sharon from the start, though. Actually, that's not true. In Winter Soldier, I thought she was an interesting character. But after that, I was like, they didn't do anything with her. And this supposed chemistry between her and Captain America, I'm like, no, I want him with Bucky. Like, there's way more chemistry between him and Bucky. But Civil War,
what was the thing I sent you? Make Civil Love, not Civil War, and it shows Captain America making out with Iron Man. I was like, that had more chemistry.
Remind me later to tell you about the fan theory that Guardians of the Galaxy is really a D&D campaign with the Avengers. Oh my God. We should have that as a bonus episode, deconstructing that. But going back to this, Sharon's character, it's like they tried to do something super interesting and have her be all bitter, and it fell flat. And I was also pissed because I'm like, I kept thinking, okay, she has to be deep cover. This has to be a mission from Nick Fury. But then at the end, she's exonerated and she makes a phone call and it's like, okay, now I've got secrets. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on with this character?
So I also feel that what we got, Sharon Carter's character is a throwaway. Like, she literally could have just been new blonde woman number 1. And
there was no reason to have it be Sharon. It could have been anybody.
But I have a sneaking feeling because Dreyfus's character is in Black Widow.
Is she?
She's supposed to be introduced in Black Widow. So this is the first Marvel snafu because of the pandemic. So we were supposed to see her appear again. I don't know how it impacts the plot, but we now have seen the first pandemic snafu of Marvel. But even her character, she gets two scenes. Mm-hmm. And the first one, I didn't even realize it was her. But the U.S. agent's girlfriend is there. And
I forgot about her. Honestly,
the girlfriend goes, "Who are you?" And she just reaches in and pulls out a business card and hands it to her like that's everything and goes back to the conversation. So incredibly dismissive, yet somehow polite. And when she walks away, they're like, "Who is she?" And she's like, "The business card's blank." And I was like, love.
Well, and it's Julia Louis-Dreyfus. And so you hit the nail on the head. She's rude and yet polite and like cultured while she's dressing you down and literally looking her nose down at them because they were sitting, she was standing, and the way the camera angles were when you're looking at it from US agents' perspective, yeah, you're looking up at her. It was brilliant. It was brilliant.
The second scene with her was all the character you needed in one monologue. Yep. And it's super short because I can't remember what she said that started, but it was something like, I could have killed them, but I didn't.
But I could have.
But I didn't. But you don't know. And you're like, and at this point, we do know that she's Madam Hydra. Like, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
But it was just super funny in the fact that you were like, good guy, bad guy, and questionable. Like, I just want you to talk at the camera for 8 episodes. Like, I don't care what you know.
She took us on the full journey in a matter of seconds. And this is the thing that pisses me off about Sharon Carter. We had 2 scenes with the Countess, with Madam Hydra, and I'm enthralled. I want more. Sharon Carter is sprinkled throughout the show, and I could give a shit. I don't care.
Character, when she has her first monologue about being bitter, it's not even her giving that monologue. It's Sam talking to her saying, I understand why you're bitter. So she doesn't even get to own her own character arc. Everyone explains it to her. And I was like, you literally got mansplained about your own feelings.
Yep.
And so yet again, poor Sharon Carter, the writers didn't know what to do with her. Now, the other thing I want to talk about really quick, and this is a long one, US Agent takes place, and this is a big deal in all of Marvel. So US Agent is one of my favorite. He's the only Avenger I actually like. So the rest of them I hate. They're all
fucking hated this character. Fucking hated him.
Loved him. And the reason I loved him, so originally we get Wyatt Russell. He shows up as the new captain. Sam has said, like, I don't want it. I'm not ready for it. It's not me. And all of a sudden they were like, yeah, we're going to retire the character. By the way, here's the new captain. And it's Wyatt Russell. And instantly the visual cues with him are awesome because the camera travels up his body in this new kind of janky looking suit as far as I'm concerned. And he's wearing a pistol. Well, that's not very captain.
Nope.
And so he gets some good fight scenes. He is a good guy. He wants to do good. And the fact that people are standing in his way when they're telling him to do one thing and saying don't with the other, he gets angry. And he slowly loses himself in that world of politics. And as someone who works in education and is told to do one job, and then my admin tells me to do another, we are all US Agent. We have all been him. And I feel the reason everyone hates him is because in the world of Marvel, he is the first real superhero. Everyone else compass points north. And let's be honest, just like Watchmen, it wouldn't.
Well, the thing, so I hated the character. I'm just gonna say it. Even though he did really look like his dad, Kurt Russell.
Yeah.
That's Kurt Russell's son. It was I was like, holy shit. But the thing I feel like was a missed opportunity with him is it was obvious that they wrote him with some pretty severe PTSD, which is also where his anger issues come from. Yep. He talks about what they made him do and how they don't understand it. And he questions, the scenes where he questioned and he's like, am I really the good guy? Am I the guy that can do this? Because look at what I did over here and over there. And it made me sympathetic towards him, but I also feel like it was such a missed opportunity to talk about the mental toll that war takes on people. They approached the line and they never crossed it. And I think it was a way to make him even more complex, but they never did it.
So that last episode ruined the whole season because we finally get US Agent. And US Agent does some bad things for good reasons because he does feel that he's the Punisher for all intents and purposes. He's the Punisher meets Captain America. They get it on in the back room, and out comes U.S. agent.
Gross.
How's that for action? So, and he goes in the show, some traumatic stuff happens. His best friend, his Bucky to Sam, gets killed. And he goes out into the street and stalks the person who killed his partner, and he bashes his face in with the shield until it's the iconic bloody Captain America shield. And everyone was appalled at this. And every time I heard someone gripe about it, I was just like, you wouldn't do it any differently. Like, you want him to be Captain America. He's not Captain America. He's you. He is you who is trying to be. And that's what I loved about him. I mean, also, I love a brutal hero, but he embodied the average human if we were given those abilities. His compass isn't perfectly north, and I loved it.
See, I didn't see enough of the hero in him. I didn't.
Because that last episode was like 3 minutes long, and he's like, I'm angry, I'm going to fight you all. Oh, but wait, some people are in danger. I guess I picked to be a hero. I'm going to go save. You literally just went like the 5 stages of grief in like in one shot. Like, we literally watch it across his face where he's like, okay.
Yeah.
And
no,
that
it was
beef.
They didn't. Again, the writers were uneven. When they wrote his character, it's incredibly uneven. And I think that if they had talked more about his PTSD, if they had talked more about, or done a better job writing those moral questions that he is struggling with, if we could have seen more of that, then I feel like he would have been a way more interesting character. Because for me, I felt like he was just coded as this guy that just, another privileged white guy that's throwing a temper tantrum every now and again. And that's how he came off to me, with glimpses of something that could have been more.
And he, again, him and Sharon were just, they had built it up. Like the 6 episodes leading up to the finale showed the ramp. And you were like, we're picking up for some hardcore, like, emotionally charged. Oh, but wait, the end. And then to make it even worse, the last scene that has Dreyfus, being Dreyfus, he finally comes out in the true U.S. agent uniform, and it is perfection to the comic. And he comes out, and I think, come to find out, they didn't even, it's not scripted. He's just talking. Like, he's talking.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'm wearing this cool suit. Like, awesome. We're going to completely negate your emotional journey into a punchline. I was excited for the suit, just like Sam in the captain's suit, which also, by the way, looked ridiculous as far as I'm concerned.
Oh my God, I loved it. I loved it.
It was perfect to the comic, but there were some questions there. Like, the ear thing just looked weird. But that was like my beef, was that last episode could have very easily been 2 to 3 episodes, and Carly could have gotten her full story arc. Agent could have gotten his. Sharon could have gotten his. We could have thrown in a couple more Dreyfus scenes, because why not? And even Bradley, Isaiah Bradley, could have warmed up to the acceptance of Captain.
They rushed it. They rushed all of it. And yet, see, here's the weird thing. I can see that they rushed that episode, but at the same time, there were times I'm like, God, this is dragging. Is anything going to happen? So it's a matter of the pacing was really off. And that is a writing problem, and it is a directorial problem. Those 2 elements were not syncing up at all.
And the best thing about WandaVision was they had the giant fight, and they're like, we could do this fight and make it all storm cloudy and make it really hide the CGI. Now we're going to do it in broad daylight. Let's just go balls to the wall. Whereas this show, the opening scene with Sam using his wings, all awesomeness, and then every episode thereafter, perfect daylight. But wait, we must have run out of budget because the last episode, we're going to make it impossible to see him be Captain America.
Yeah, that was annoying.
Like, did everyone get fired before the last episode? Like, I feel like we watched 2 different seasons that didn't connect well.
They needed better pacing. They needed better story arcs for Sharon Carter and U.S. Agent. And they needed to show and not tell, which is interesting to say for a television show.
So with all of that being said, I liked it. I would watch it again in a heartbeat. I like the fact that they're setting up for West Coast Avengers. I love the fact that there's the potential for Baron Zemo's superhero team showing up.
I loved him so much. Can we just have some love for Baron Zemo? I mean...
Oh, and we didn't even mention the fucking Wakanda's in this.
The Dora Milaje, yeah.
Were some of the
best
fight scenes, period.
Yeah, incredible. Incredible.
And they had a better emotional story arc than Sharon Carter. And they're in there for 7 minutes, tops.
I want more of them and Bucky. That's what I want.
I really just want to watch them do chores. I don't really care. So yeah, I definitely watch it. Definitely. Yeah. So now I'm really curious about how Loki will fit into the overall universe, but I'm really curious what Disney's doing a really good job of story structure. I want to know more. So. Well,
and I don't think Loki is going to fit in. I think that's the point.
I kind of hope it doesn't.
I'm tired of interconnected stories. That's what I liked about WandaVision, honestly. It was a few interconnected pieces, but for the most part, it was its own entity.
Yeah. So
anyway,
we will see. All right, everybody.
We recommend it with caution.
Yeah. With open eyes and a critical
lens.
Yeah. All right, everyone. We will talk to you later. Have a great afternoon.
Bye.
To stay up to date with the Geekorama podcast, you can watch our videos on YouTube or subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts. And if you enjoy the show, leave us a review or hit the thumbs up button.